Okay, good morning everyone. It's about 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome to today's webinar presented by Qdabra Software. My name is Jennifer Lindsay. I'm a project manager and InfoPath developer here at Qdabra. And today's webinar is a little bit special. Today we're going to be going over a couple of early prototypes of some internal projects that we've been working on, some new software for you to use with your InfoPath and SharePoint solutions. We will be specifically going over the site scanner and basic introduction to Qdabra Forms services, which is a new web service that we've been working on. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Qdabra, just a little bit about us. We are a consulting and software company. We focus on SharePoint, InfoPath, and eForms solutions for customers large and small. We have an active community, infopathddev.com. It's a forum. It contains weekly blogs, sample files that you can download, other tutorials that you can follow, and also a forum that you can post your questions to and that we try to answer on a regular basis. This is a good way to get some free support if you have some small issues or blocking issues on the forms that you're designing. We also offer a more formal support route, pay-as-you-go support, and more formal, larger support packages if your project is a little bigger than usual. We focus on bridging the gap between InfoPath, SharePoint, and SQL. We have a very powerful web services called DBXL. We also have a plugin for InfoPath called QRules, which provides additional functionality that the native InfoPath software does not support, like exporting things to SharePoint lists, exporting attachments, inserting things into rows, inserting rows into tables rather, programmatically, as opposed to just using the native InfoPath controls, which are actually quite limited. We also do consulting work for hire. If you have a large project and you really don't know where to get started, you can go ahead and chat with one of our developers, one of our project managers, and we can help you to get on the right path there. Okay, let's launch into the webinar for today. So what I'm going to be showing you today is the beginning of a new software suite that Qdabra has been developing here for the last few months. It's called eForms Innovations, and it's a suite of cloud-based web services and apps that can help you assess the content of your SharePoint site, maintain your site with some open source software as opposed to closed software and proprietary software, extend your site content into different formats for better reusability, or migrate your site content away from SharePoint entirely into other data management solutions, if that's what you want. The idea here is to give you different levels of support, taking you beyond the native abilities of SharePoint, beyond the native abilities of InfoPath, so that you have the freedom to choose your own path. Now, those of you who are familiar with the DBXL and QRules products that Qdabra already has knows that we've been progressing down this path for several years already. We allow our customers to go beyond what's out-of-the-box support in SharePoint and InfoPath, and we've gotten so much great feedback over the years from our customers who really want more and more of these features that we've finally taken that next step with eForms Innovations. Okay, so what will I be showing you today? I will be showing you the Site Scanner app, which allows you to very quickly scan your entire SharePoint site and display summary statistics on the number of different InfoPath content types that you have, the number of different libraries that contain forms or don't contain forms, the number of lists that contain forms. You can also save InfoPath Forms to lists, and the number and different types of forms that you have in all of these basically different container structures on your site. Now, the reason why we're providing this app is because, if you have a SharePoint site and you go to all site content, you see everything on there. Just because you have a library doesn't mean it's a library that contains InfoPath Forms. It can contain other things. It could contain other attachments. It could contain images, whatnot. The Site Scanner app really focuses on where your forms are and all the different locations that they're in and how many forms you have. So it's very different from just the all-site content that's provided default in SharePoint. The other thing I'm going to be showing you today is a basic introduction to Qdabra Forms services. Qdabra Forms services allows you to do many of the things that you found in QRules, for those of you who've used our QRules product before. However, it's code-free. Those of you who are familiar with what's going on behind the scenes in QRules, QRules basically gives you additional functionality that you don't have to write the code for. But when you install QRules in your form, the code is still in your form. This way, it's code-free, and it gives you a lot of the same basic features that QRules does as well, and we're actively building more and more features into this. Right now, things you can do: move your data out of InfoPath Forms, save form fields to SharePoint lists, save attachments to SharePoint lists or libraries, and also email a form as a PDF file, and even break down big forms into smaller forms using XML to XML mapping. So why would we want these things? Well, your SharePoint sites can very, very quickly grow out of control if you're building a very complicated solution, or if you're hosting several solutions all on the same SharePoint site or subsite, or if you've migrated things from one site to another, you're combining information from different sites. Every time you stand up a new site or make changes to your site, it's very easy to lose track of what is on your site, where are all your forms, where are all your libraries. So the Site Scanner app allows you to very quickly find all of your InfoPath templates and the related resources. This is a very easy way to locate them all. You can also get insight into the usage and a summary of each form's key features, which are features that we'll be adding to the Scanner app later on. Right now, it just gives you a basic snapshot of everything that is on your SharePoint site related to InfoPath Forms. Now, as far as the Qdabra form services, this is really so that you can get more out of your InfoPath Forms, and sort of literally out of your InfoPath Forms, because forms are great for capturing data from your user base, but they're not so great for accessing or storing or manipulating that data. If you want to get at the data that's in a form, you usually have to open up the form and view it. So with Qdabra Forms services, you can access this data very easily from outside your form, because Form Services puts the data outside your form. You can put the data in a list. You can put attachments directly into an attachment library instead of having to open up your forms, download all the attachments manually, which very quickly becomes a non-starter if you have hundreds or even thousands of forms. The other great thing about Form Services is because it has no code, you don't need to admin deploy your forms, and you don't need to activate sandbox services, which was a new feature that was added to SharePoint 2010. So you don't need access to any of these features in order to use Qdabra Form services. And why? Because we're doing everything through web services. We're not adding any additional code behind the scenes in your form like QRules does. Okay, enough talk. Let's actually see some of this stuff in action. So let me quickly find my the demos that I had planned. Here we go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to take a look at is the InfoPath. Oops, here we go. The InfoPath Site Scanner, and this is available as, or will be available as, an app in SharePoint 2013. Again, we're gearing things towards the cloud-based model. So what you see here is a SharePoint 2013 site. This is actually Office 365 if you haven't seen this before. And I'm in my site contents, and I'm simply going to add an app. And I'm going to find the InfoPath Site Scanner app. And here it is down here. If you don't see it immediately, you can still use the search box to search for it. I'm just going to click on it. And you need to click Trust because this is actually going to have access to your site. And if we wait a little bit, it takes a little bit of time to install. It's a little bit slower because I'm also running GoToWebinar, which is taking up a fair amount of my bandwidth. If you're doing this locally on your computer, it'll probably happen faster. Here we go. Okay, the app is now installed. I'm just going to click on it once to open it up. And there we go. Now I have this installed on one of our training sites, which should have lots of goodies to display. So I'm simply going to click the refresh button to activate the scan. Again, this is a prototype, so things may change, names of buttons may change. And you'll see it very quickly scanned the entire site. It's letting me know that I have two content types that are available to this entire site. And just to give you a reminder of what site you're actually looking at, it gives you the the subsite URL and the exact location of these individual content types. If I scroll down a bit, you'll see, oops, scroll down a little bit too much. This next section shows you all of the different libraries that have InfoPath Forms available to them. Also gives you the location of these libraries. So we're in the /training/intermediate subsite on this particular SharePoint 2013 site. And you immediately see exactly how many forms are on your site. And we'll be adding other summary statistics here, possibly dates of last when these libraries were last modified. And as you can see, we also have several lists that contain InfoPath Forms as well. Now, if you've ever used lists with InfoPath Forms, you will know that just a sort of a quick view of the all-site contents on your SharePoint site will not give you this information. All you'll see is a bunch of lists, and you'll have no idea which lists contain your InfoPath Forms and which lists just contain regular old list items. So again, the site scanner is really geared towards finding all the InfoPath Forms and templates and content types that are available on your site. Now, if I went off and modified this site, I thought I had. Let me quickly open up another link to this particular site. Now let's say if I went off and modified one of these, let's find the shared, let's see, do I have any shared documents? Yeah, in the documents. Okay, so let's go off and see if I simply uploaded another form to this particular. Now see, this is the documents library, and you'll see inside here there are actually subfolders. So the site scanner is actually going through all of the subfolders that may be present in any of your libraries and finding all the forms in that, which is a lot faster than you drilling down inside the the folder structure in the libraries on your site and trying to figure out how many forms are in there. So I'm just going to upload a file that I have sitting somewhere on my desktop. I'm just going to upload another form. Let's find a form. I have one here, I believe. Here we go. Here's a nice form. I'm going to upload this. And now we have another form in the documents library. So we're going to go, we should go from 302 to 303 if I click refresh again. And you'll see that that 302 got updated to 303 immediately. So as soon as you make changes to any of the libraries, upload any forms, delete any forms, add customer contact types, delete customer contact, delete content types. Well, it looks like we have a little bit of a bug to work out in this particular prototype. It's picking up extra content types now. But so you can see this is just a really great way to get a quick snapshot of all of the forms on your site, where the forms are located, all of the content types on your site, and where those content types are located. Okay, let's move on to the Qdabra Forms services. So I'm sure you've all sort of run across a situation where you would love to get attachments out of your forms without manually opening up the forms and downloading the attachments one by one. With QRules, you can do that, but now we also have a code-free way of doing that as well. Let's take a look at this simple form that I put together to demonstrate that. This is just a very kind of a bit of a silly example, but it should do the trick. We have just a simple form that keeps track of different brands. I'm going to upload a picture of a holiday-themed Coke can, if I can find it. There we go. I saw these in the stores the other day and just had to use it in this particular webinar. So I'm uploading that particular image, and I think it's actually a very large high-resolution image, so it may take a little bit. Wow, this is taking a long time. I could have drunk that entire Coke can. Sorry, guys. There we go. All right. So there's that Coke can image. And what I have down here is a button that does two things. The first thing it does is use the regular old SharePoint library submit that's built into InfoPath. That's great. That'll put the form in the form library with the image inside it. But the other thing we want to do is save the logo out to a separate document library that we've set up. So that the forms are sitting in your form library. That's great, and obviously there could be other textual information in the forms that you may want to keep there as well, not just a name. But the logo, the images, will be available in another library, directly accessible by you. You can download them, you can manipulate them, whatever you want to do with that image library. So let me go ahead and click the button and execute those two actions, saving the form and saving the image to a different library. And here we go. You see we have a new form created. And if I go over here to the logos library, if I refresh this, you'll see here we go. We have a new image added there. And if you turn this into a picture library, you'll actually have a nice thumbnail of the image instead of this link. And here's the image just sitting right here in the library. So imagine if you had 1,500 of these forms here, and you wanted to get at all of the images or all the file attachments. This works as well for regular file attachments as well as images. And you wanted to get at all of those attachments and all 1,500 forms. Well, you could either open up all 1,500 forms and manually download them and take up your entire afternoon, or you could use the Qdabra Forms services save to SharePoint command, which is what I just demonstrated, and they would all be right here sitting in this other library with giving you direct access to all of those attachments. Okay, before I go into the next demo, I see we have a couple of questions. Can this be used in SharePoint 2010? Yvette asks. Well, if you're talking about the Site Scanner app, that is geared towards SharePoint 2013. We are using that in the cloud. However, Qdabra Form services can be used in SharePoint 2010. Okay, well, and actually I believe this particular form that I'm about to demo is an InfoPath 2010 form as well. So this works for InfoPath 2010 as well as SharePoint 2010. So that's great if you've got, only a couple of attachments in your form. What if you have other data that you want to get? You want to get text information out from the other, text-based fields in your form. Or if you have repeating data, wouldn't it be great if we could pull repeating data out? Maybe you have a pretty big table and you'd like to access the information in that table, the attachments in that table, without having to open up the form and pull all of that information out manually. So let's take a look at an expense report that I have here that I filled out for a holiday party that unfortunately did not take place. It looks like it would have been a lot of fun, right? Okay, so I've filled out this expense report, and it would be really nice if I could take all of these individual itemized expenses and put them in a separate list. And maybe I could take that list and download it into Excel and use Excel for my reporting on all those itemized expenses, but I would still have each expense report form sitting there in the library as a record of all of the different expense reports that were filed. So I can manipulate the itemized expenses separately off. Maybe I can, use that in Excel or use it in another database, and additionally have all the forms sitting here as a record of what was submitted in each expense report. So Qdabra Form Services will allow you to take all of the information out of these itemized expenses, which, as you'll notice, also includes an attachment field for receipt. And I'm going to extract that information by clicking the Submit to List button down here. Fingers crossed that this works this morning. It worked yesterday, but sometimes you never know. All right, looks like that has finished. And let's go over to the expenses list. And here we are. We have these 3 expenses that have just been added. And you'll see that they match up with the figgy pudding, the holiday wreath, and the gingerbread house that were actually on the expense report form. And if I open up one of these and just click View Item, we will see that that attachment field for the receipt is right here. And there's that invoice. If I go here and I download this invoice, you'll see that it's the exact same thing. Oops, one second. Okay, let me go ahead and save this out and prove to you that it actually is the same attachment field. So here's that invoice that just downloaded. So there's that invoice that I just downloaded from this particular form. So this is what you would have to go through to get all of these different, to get all these invoices or receipts out of each one of the expense report forms. Or you can use the Save to SharePoint List command with Qdabra Form Services and have those right here sitting in the expenses list that we have mapped all of that repeating data to. So you tell me which one of these is easier to get at all of the receipts that are attached to 1,500 expense reports that are submitted to your expense report library. Okay, the last thing I wanted to show is the Send PDF command, which is also part of Qdabra Form Services. It allows you to send a PDF snapshot of the current view in your form to any email address that you specify in the form logic. Unfortunately, we had server issues this morning on the server that's hosting that particular portion of the web service, so I'm unable to demonstrate that for you. You may have noticed on the expense report that there is a Send PDF file. Send PDF button. What this does is it sends a PDF snapshot of this expense report to the email address that is listed in the manager field, and you can, when you set up your form logic, you can either include hard code an email address somewhere behind the scenes, or you can bind the to email address field to one of the fields that's available on the form, which is what we've done in this particular implementation. This is, however, not going to work, but it will generate a we have an error message. I was just trying it out to make sure that it didn't error out. However, I do have an email message that I received when I was testing this earlier when it did work, just to give you an idea of what the PDFs look like. And let me pull that up real quickly. Sorry, I thought I had that open. Let me find a quick one that I can locate. Sorry for the delay, guys. I'll have that sample email up here in 1 second. Okay, so this is just a sample email that the service would send if it were up and running this morning. The email body right now is bound to a particular field in the form. And the attachment comes just named as view.pdf. It's an attachment to the email. It comes from Qdabra PDF service, and if I pull this up, you'll see an earlier version of an expense report that I filled out. And this is actually what the PDF will look like. If you notice, this looks virtually identical to the rendering of the form in InfoPath. So you're getting a very high quality PDF matching the exact colors that are used in the form that you sent. And all the fields are arranged exactly the same as they are in the InfoPath form, except obviously they're not editable in this particular PDF. So this is good if you have a lot of forms and you want to archive them, but you don't necessarily want to just completely get rid of the data inside them. You want some sort of an archive to be available later on. Maybe if you're going to be audited, you need to have these forms on record, but you don't need them taking up space on your SharePoint site in your SharePoint library. Some of you may know that SharePoint libraries have a maximum limit of 5,000 forms. So if you're getting thousands of forms submitted every year and you occasionally want to archive them, this is a nice and easy way to archive forms that you're not necessarily going to have to go in and get the data out at some point in the future. You just want a record of them. You can run this send PDF method on the entire library. In its final instantiation, you'll be able to do that and instantly archive all of your forms out to PDF, and then you can simply delete the forms from the library, freeing up space to move forward. Okay, that completes the demos that I had today. I see we have a couple of questions. Frank asks, is this saving the image twice? So I believe Frank was talking about our particular save to SharePoint, which saved out that image attachment. And Frank, it is essentially saving the image twice, once inside the InfoPath form itself, which is where the image was stored when the user uploaded it to the form. And it's also saving the image out separately to this logos list. So, and that means if you manipulate the images in this list, it will not affect the images or the attachments that are stored inside the form in the form library. So those two things are distinct and separate. So you can modify one without worrying about modifying the other. My SharePoint site is going crazy over here. Sorry, guys. Okay, Jania asks, is the Site Scanner app currently available? No, nothing that I've shown you today is currently available. These are prototypes that are currently in development. We are preparing to launch them in early 2014, and we will have a certain period open for beta testing early next year. If you're interested in being one of our beta testers, I'm not sure if there are still slots available. However, please leave feedback in the webinar if you are interested in being one of our beta testers, and we'll see if we can slot you in. Jania also asks, can you use the Send PDF feature to email to people outside of your SharePoint environment? I just realized none of you can see the questions I'm reading. Here we go. Can you use the Send PDF feature to email to people outside of your SharePoint environment? Yes, you can. As long as it's a valid email address, you can send it to anyone you want. And as long as that email address is specified somewhere in the form, so either in hard-coded behind the scenes in the data connection to the PDF web service, or as I showed, as one of the form fields on the form that the user can enter an email address on. Does QRules do PDF conversion or send PDF? As of today, no, QRules does not do PDF conversion or send PDF. Tiffany asks, is Qdabra Form Services already available? If not, when is it scheduled for rollout? So I kind of asked this with Jania's question. Yeah, it will be available for rollout. We're not exactly sure. We don't have a final date yet, but it will be in the first half of 2014 for sure. Michael asks, how does the PDF look if you have multiple views? So this is a single view send PDF at this time. We're looking into making it a multiple view PDF file, so 1 page per view. We run into problems though if you have a very, very long view that may be a multi-page view. So there's some issues that we have to work out there. So right now it's just 1 page per view. And Tom asks, is the PDF a flat, non-editable image? Yes, it is. And let me see if I still have that PDF open. I do. So let me move this out of the way. Yeah, it's completely flat, and you see none of these buttons. The buttons are rendering right now, but obviously you can't click on them, so the drop downs are inoperable. The text boxes you can't type anything into. So this is really just an archive of your form. It is non-editable. It's just a snapshot of the particular view that the Send PDF service is connected to. Okay, looks like I got through all of the questions. I'd like to thank you for attending the presentation today. And we will have, just wanted to give a quick overview of our webinar kits. These are always free. If you attend the particular webinar and you send feedback, you can send feedback as soon as the webinar ends. There will be a feedback form that pops up. You can fill it out and submit it to us. $29 if you've missed the webinar and want to get access to the associated files. I do need to check and see if there will be files associated with this webinar, because these are all prototypes and you will not actually be able to use them right now. So I do believe this webinar is different from the others in that there are actually no files available. We can, of course, still send you the slides if you like them as reference. And thanks, everyone. Like I said, send us your feedback. We're very interested, especially in feedback for this particular webinar, because we are showing you prototypes of new products that we're going to be introducing next year. Now is the time to get your feedback in. Thank you, Brian. Awesome job. Thanks a lot, guys. And you will get today's presentation and probably not the demo templates. I apologize for that. Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Everyone have a wonderful